Hello, everybody. This is Eddie D'Angelini, co-owner and co-manager of Heidi Ho Comics, with a special episode of Tales from the Comic Shop. On June 3rd, on all of our social media, Heidi Ho Comics posted the following message. Yes, we were looted. Yes, we had property destroyed. No, that does not take away from the righteousness of the protests. Don't be angry for us. Be angry for the injustices that have yet to be righted. We stand with you now more than ever. And I'd like to introduce my co-hosts, Joe Bryan and Roger Prowse.
Hey Eddie, yeah, it's definitely been a historical week. I mean, this will, I mean, what we're seeing, the unprecedented level of protest, especially the fact that it's spreading around the world like it has, it's quite remarkable. So I'm grateful that you're here to tell us your story about this week and your personal experience because it was quite harrowing to watch over social media and text. And so, like I said, it's been a historic week. On Saturday, protests really jumped off, especially outside of. I think Friday in Minneapolis there was the start of the protesting, and that's when we saw the initial riots as well, I believe. And by Saturday, it had spread to all the major cities in the U.S. In L.A., they were protesting in downtown. I remember seeing cop cars burning on Fairfax and Third, which was just a crazy sight to see. And by Sunday, the protests had moved to Santa Monica, where Heidi Ho is located. The protests in the morning started off down towards the water, Eddie.
Correct. Yeah, on Ocean Boulevard. So the actual protesters were marching towards close to the water and weren't even near any of the inland businesses.
Okay, and then as the day moved along, I remember we were in contact messaging and we were talking and you didn't really know what was happening. And it was probably mid-afternoon when you sent the first picture and you received that from a friend of yours.
I received it from my friend Matt, who works for the Santa Monica paper. He runs the paper. He's the editor in chief, and yeah, he was in the area and he was getting pictures of what was going on, and he sent me the pictures of our shop broken into.
Yeah, and you said you saw video of you saw a video of the people that were doing the looting on your block and they were just hitting every business indiscriminately.
Pretty much. I mean, they were looting heavily. If people watched the news and they saw it while it was going on, the big business that they kept showing, the big shop that they kept showing being looted all throughout the day was that Vans store on the corner in Santa Monica. Well, that Vans store is just a couple stores down from Heidi Ho Comics, so we're right on that same block. So we were pretty much right in the middle of it. And the next block over is where the big Santa Monica Mall is at, and that's also where all the looting started. So I didn't even know it was happening. The protests were already over at that point. The people who were marching had a route, and they had already finished that route. And when the looting started, these were people from outside Santa Monica that were kind of piggybacking on the protests and the chaos that was going on and took advantage of it and were being opportunists, really. So we were right there, and they were pretty much hitting anything and everything. I mean, there were shops that got their windows busted out for no reason. I mean, there was stuff in there that wasn't stolen. They were just breaking windows literally up and down Broadway, which is the street that Heidi Ho is on. Thankfully, for whatever reason, our windows didn't get broken at all. The video that I saw that you mentioned, I saw a couple days ago, well after the fact, where someone had come into the shop and said, I was out there that day and I was shooting video of what was going on. And I have video of that moment that your shop got broken into if you wanted to see it. So I watched it, and you could see a crowd of like about a dozen or more people all ramming the door and breaking the door. And the minute the door breaks, you see them all flood in to the shop. And from the report that I got from my friend Matt at the paper, he said that they had flooded in, ransacking the actual shop and stealing things and going to the registers. And others were went straight to the back storage room, and others were going upstairs into the offices. So they pretty much covered the whole shop at that point.
And your friend, he told you guys that the looting was kind of moving away from your store's area and that you had a window to go down there. What was it like?
Yeah, this was later in the day. We pretty much realized at this point we need to get out to Home Depot and get some boards, get some plywood to board up the shop as soon as possible. And I'll clarify, I don't live in Santa Monica. My shop is in Santa Monica, but I live in Torrance, which is farther, a bit south of Santa Monica, down the 405 freeway. So I was at home watching it like everybody else, and seeing our shop on TV. So we went out to get the plywood, and I was talking to my friend Matt at the paper, and he was saying that the police have moved in. They're pushing the protesters south. So in about an hour, they'll have pushed them far enough south that you should be able to get in here and board up your shop. So that was our plan. We got the plywood. We timed it, our drive to get down there at around the time he said, but we could not make it to our shop. We were about a couple blocks away, and we were in the parking lot of the Vons grocery store that also was getting looted really hard. And as we were driving in and pulling into the Vans parking lot, the hardware store right next to it, we were watching it getting actively looted. They had gates across the doors and everything, and that didn't matter one bit. They got through all of that. And they were coming out with tools and mallets and everything. And all those people with tools were all going straight to Vons. And we were there in the parking lot as everyone was going crazy and busting up all the windows and the doors to get into the Vons and running in and out and looting it. And it was literally like a war zone at that point. We were stopped wondering, what the hell are we going to do? We can't quite get past. We had gotten word that just down the street where our shop was, they had the National Guard all across the street in a line, not letting anybody get through. So I think we realized at that point, we can't get to the shop, and we're here in the middle of this craziness where anybody can start just, bashing my truck with mallets and everything. And we decided we need to get out of here. And the police cars are speeding by and lobbing tear gas or smoke bombs or whatever into the parking lot as we were there. So we decided we need to just turn around and get out of here. So yeah, we turned around, went home, and realized there's nothing we can do until the morning.
And so the next morning, you found out that two customers had actually stayed and protected your shop overnight. They even duct taped the door closed for you, you said?
They didn't stay overnight. During the act of looting, there were a couple of customers, not at the same time, but at certain points, that had stayed camped out for an hour or so in front of that busted door, basically blocking anybody from getting in. And we later, the next couple of days, identified who they were. But they didn't stay overnight. The one who came later duct taped up the door really, really good so that nobody can get in. And because that was my worry, we were all going to bed that night thinking the shop is just there with the door wide open. And we figured probably all the windows busted too, because when we were watching the news at 11 o'clock at night that night, they were there with the reporters were there doing a live report on Broadway, where the thick of the action was happening. And they were walking literally down the middle of the street because it was just empty. And every store, all down each side, you could see the windows were all busted out on every single shop. And we were like waiting for him to walk by our shop so we could see if the same, was, if our shop was the same with all the windows gone, but they cut off before they got to it. So at that point, I was just assuming, yeah, our windows are busted out too. But thankfully, they weren't. We were like one of the very few that didn't have all our windows busted out, which is kind of strange, because they were busting out the windows of any and every business just to bust them out. I mean, like a Starbucks. What are you going to loot in a Starbucks? But they would just bust out all the windows just to bust them out.
What does that feel like, Eddie? Like I mean, that's got to be helpless, right?
Well, it's yeah. You feel helpless. You feel violated. There's nothing you can do, and you just feel like your business, which is like your home, is just completely exposed. It's no different than if someone came to your house and busted all the windows in your house when you weren't there and just came on in and did whatever they wanted.
So Monday morning, you were able to get down to the shop finally, and survey the damage. What was that like coming into the shop? Like,
Well, my two partners got there before I did, because we were having a heck of a time getting into the downtown area of Santa Monica, because the entire city came out to help. Everybody cleaning up graffiti, sweeping up, and just a lot of traffic of looky-loos and everything, which I understand people want to see what happened or get out there and help, but they were making it really hard for people like me to get to my business and to, unload plywood to help board up my business. So while I appreciate the outpouring from the community, I don't think that they were making it difficult for us as well. So I got there after my two partners, and they had already started to sweep up, pick up all the cases and displays. So it didn't look as disheveled as when they got there, but they took pictures. And so they, showed me, and they knocked over glass cases, broke the glasses. The glass on the cases, they, upturned the registers and stole the money out of there. We have an iPad that we use for credit card, to process credit cards through the app. And I'm really shocked that they didn't take it, that they didn't steal the iPad. That kind of threw me. It was just strewn out all over the floor somewhere, and we had to, find it. But I'm shocked that they didn't take that. I figured that would be easy money to just turn around and sell. But for whatever reason, I'm glad, because I was worried that I'm going to have to go and change all the passwords for all our accounts and everything, banking and all that. And I was worried that they would kind of get into that, but thankfully that did not happen. So really got there in the morning and kind of surveyed the damage, and we didn't really have a lot of time to take it in, because that Monday and the following 2 days after that, Santa Monica had, at least downtown Santa Monica, had a 2 p.m. curfew. So that's it. By 2 p.m., you had to be out of there and off the streets. So we spent that time trying to clean up as much as we could and board up the shop and get it taken care of before we got out of there.
okay, and that's when you and your partners decided to write the messages on the boards.
Yeah, we once we kind of got things cleaned up best we could, we all sat down and kind of had a little owners meeting and tried to figure out what we're going to do from here. And the most important thing that we all decided was that we still stand behind the message of the protesters, and we wanted to make that known, not just to our customers, but to all of Santa Monica, the entire neighborhood. And that's when we decided we are going to write these messages on the boards outside the shop. And I believe that if anyone wants to see it, we'll repost it on the Tales from the Comic Shop Facebook page, so everybody can see it and see what we
Yeah,
wrote.
I put them up. They're in the group. I'll put them up again, and I'll tweet them out, and I'll put them up on the Instagram. Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm gonna segue here away from the timeline, because I think it's worth noting that there is a museum that wants the boards when you're done using them, Eddie.
My partner was contacted by the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan that's going to be doing an exhibit about the times that we live in right now and a lot of the social strife. And they wanted the boards from our shop to put up on display.
That's really cool.
If I can stop you just for 1 second, Joe, regarding the message that we put on there, and if people who are listening, you can go and look at it on our social media. The reaction to what we wrote on those boards, and the message that we put out to the community has been received by and large 99% positively. Everyone has stopped to take pictures. Everyone has stopped to say, "Did you guys put this up?" And when we say yes, they all thank us. We wanted to clarify that not only do we support the message, but we do not equate the looters with the protesters. We do not equate the looters with the message. Those are two separate things, because people who did have not nice things to say about what we wrote were doing so because they were basically saying that the protesters and the looters were one and the same, and they were not.
Yeah, no, there were definitely some people who tried to co-opt your experience and use it for their own message, and honestly probably because they're just trying to monetize off of people who feel that way. It's pretty pathetic and disgusting,
Right.
in my opinion.
And in my opinion, and the experience that I went through with this, I can clearly see that the people who were looting, they were pretty much just opportunists. They were taking advantage of the situation, were co-opting, like you said, and using it for their own gain. These were not people that had a political message over and above their own anger of the situation, but they did not have any cohesive political message like the protesters did. And they were not trying to be out there on the streets for positive change.
Okay, so over Monday and Tuesday, you got the shop cleaned up, and then Tuesday you went and picked up new books, and you guys were open for new book day, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had to try to get back to normal as best we could.
That gets a golf clap.
Thank you. I mean, we could have said, well, we're going to close down for the week, but then what do we do with the new books that I have to go pick up on Tuesday? We're just going to have them sit in the shop. A lot of the customers, our regulars, contacted us and said, how can we help? And we wanted to very, unashamedly tell them the way you can help is show up on Wednesday like you normally do and buy your books. That's the biggest help that you can do for us right now. Just be careful to step over any of the glass you see on the floor when you do so. So we
that must
wanted
be nerve-wracking.
yeah, we have swept several times, and every time we sweep, we still keep on sweeping up pieces of glass. So,
well, I mean, just having customers in your store with broken glass that you can't see is...
well, yeah, I mean, it's not like it was that Monday, but if you
Yeah.
look closely, when the light hits it, you can see little shimmering pieces still here and there on the floor, and you try to sweep it up when you see it, but the more you sweep, the more you see, and it's like it's unending.
Maybe
Like dust
a no
bunnies or
sandals
something.
sign is...
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I tell people, please be careful if they're not wearing closed shoes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we wanted to have some sense of normalcy, even though on Tuesday and I think Wednesday as well, the curfew was still very much in place and we could not be open for a full day. So we made sure to tell everybody, we will be open and you can come get your books, but please do it early in the day. So we're gonna. And
so how has the customer reaction been so far? I mean, have they been grateful to you guys for giving them some normalcy in their lives? Have they been?
Their reaction really has just been of complete support. They obviously they wanted to come in to see us, to see how we're doing, ask us if they can help in any way. But there were some that wanted to stay out of the area just to be safe, and I get it. And I even gave all our employees the day off. It was just my wife and I that were running things for the whole week and taking care of everything. But all our regular customers, all were supportive and wanted to come and would pick up their pull books and would go and find other things that they could buy. Grab a couple trades, anything to add to it to be supportive. And I appreciate that.
That's one of the great things about our community is most of the people are very supportive. I want to clarify, you gave your employees the week off, not the day off.
Oh, did I say day? I'm sorry. Yeah, I gave them the whole week off. I told them all, stay home, be safe, don't worry about coming in. Just stay home.
So I had the privilege of being able to kind of elevate your messages a little bit on our side as well, Eddie, because being that we as shop owners, I think the overwhelming opinion of most shop owners I've seen kind of goes with what you've said, which is, none of us want to be looted, but none of us are willing to allow that to be used as a distraction from the larger message and the larger things that are going on. Can you talk a little bit about what the overall reaction from what you saw when you were shared all that information was?
It was overwhelmingly positive. Same with our regular customers who came in. We had a few yahoos online that wanted to, talk some smack regarding it, because there were those few that were equating the protesters with the looters, like I said earlier. And honestly, that's not how it was. And the message remains the same. Our viewpoint towards it remains the same, regardless of what happened. And we made that clear, not only in our social media, but right there in huge letters on our boards. And I think that nothing is going to deter us from that.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, I would say on our end too, we, for those who want to look, if you look on our Facebook for the Nerd Store, we shared their post as well as made our own little statement about it. And I don't think there was a single negative reaction to ours, which I think, we kind of talked it over whether we were going to take a public stand on this because, we're in a pretty red area. But we've been of the opinion that human rights and politics, even though they get conflated, are not the same thing. And that's kind of the stand that we took on it, and our reaction was pretty strongly positive as well. So it's been really good seeing that reaction. I've also seen reactions that kind of tie in. So I know you had a GoFundMe set up, and not only have I seen reactions of people sharing that GoFundMe, and pretty high profile people, like I know Gail Simone, I believe, shared your GoFundMe.
Yeah.
And you've also had some donations for some pretty high profile people. You want to talk about some of those people and how that made you feel?
J. Scott Campbell got more retweets than anyone else on that GoFundMe.
That's right. J. Scott Campbell also had posted about it, tweeted about it. Some of the people that have donated above and beyond are a lot of our regular customers who, in my opinion, are just as noteworthy of celebrities as any real celebrity. But some of the few people in the comic industry that have donated towards it to help us out are people like Rick Remender, Mark Wade, Christos Gage, John Romita Jr., who I found out later found out about it through Danny Mickey. And little known fact, Danny Mickey used to work for the other store in Gardena, Jeffrey's Comics, who my partner Jeffrey owns, back in the 90s. And he was discovered in the shop by, of all people, Rob Liefeld. So
JR seems like one of the nicest people.
I've never heard a bad thing about him.
I've never met him personally, but he seems like one of the nicest people in the industry. Never heard about him. Yeah. Also, I just wanted to throw in other people who shared the fundraiser, but Jock did.
I didn't know that. Good.
Yeah, he did. There was more. I'll try and look that up and get a list together, so we can thank them at the end.
Yeah, for sure. That would be fantastic. And then I know that you've had some customers step up in a big way. I know you've had some that have, donated some product to you. And I guess one of them donated a pretty high grade comic to you and arranged a deal with CGC for them to kind of help you out as well. You want to discuss that a little bit?
So I had a regular customer who moved to the LA area from, I think he's Boston, if I'm remembering correctly, Massachusetts, somewhere around there. And when he moved here about a year or so ago, one of his parents bought a gift certificate for our shop for him for a present because they knew he liked comic books. So he came in to use it, and he said that he just fell in love with our shop from the first visit and just really loved all of us. And he's been coming ever since. He's been a regular customer. So he contacted me and said, "Hey, I gave to your GoFundMe, but I want to do more. I have a copy of Ultimate Fallout #4, first appearance of Miles Morales, and I want to donate it to the shop. I want you to sell it, and whatever money you get, put it towards the relief effort." And I couldn't thank him enough for that. That was just such a generous, friendly, wonderful offer. So he brought it in and gave it to me, but then he emailed me the next day and said, "Hey, I contacted CGC and told them about your shop and what happened and that I donated a comic. And I asked them, would they consider CGCing it for free? And they said, by all means, yes. So he gave me the contact info of the person to call, and I did. And they were just incredibly nice. They asked me questions. Hey, what happened? How you guys doing? Are you all okay? And said, yeah, we would love to do this for you. And got an email yesterday, pretty much as far as the steps I need to take to send it in and submit it, so that they can take care of it not only for free, but as quickly as possible, expedited. So that's really fantastic, a CGC.
Yeah, I know there's, we've talked in the past a little bit about how you can find horror stories for just about anybody online.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a million good things to say about everybody at CGC, about their professionalism, about their customer service, and just how good of people they are in
Yeah.
general. I have a lot of people that work there that I would genuinely call friends. Some of my favorite people I see, in the concert, and I genuinely get as excited to see my CGC reps as I do to see a lot of the creators that I'm excited to meet. Like it's a great company in my opinion.
Yeah, people love to get on their case for making mistakes, and they've made a couple of mistakes on some of our submissions in the shop. And as soon as I contact them, they just say, "Yeah, here's the label. Send it back. We'll take care of it ASAP." So
Yep. Yeah, we've had the same experience. They've always been
exactly,
really good at being on top of it.
exactly.
So I know you've also had some. So talking about some of the creators and stuff, some of them really. So there's been a few that have really gone above and beyond. I know you have a couple that have are donating, are auctioning off actually. So they're taking all of the work upon themselves to auction off a few different pieces. I know, if I recall, it's Todd Knock, Humberto Ramos, and Craig Yo. That have all done this. Do you want to discuss a little bit about what they're doing, and b about how that kind of outreach from within the industry, how that makes you feel?
I mean, it's great to know that these people in the industry they have your back. The comic industry, unlike any other industry, I think is very, very close knit. We see a lot of the same people year after year at conventions. You get to know them, even though they're the other part of the country. Whether you're a fan, a publisher, a creator, a retailer, whatever, you get to know these people. And I know Chris Yo, just kind of casually. We talk online, and then we met a couple times at shows, and I've given him my books, and he's just a really great guy. And he came out and reached out to me and said, I've been selling my art online, and I just did this piece, and I'm gonna put it up on my Facebook page for my art, and I'm gonna auction it off with all the proceeds going to you. And I was like, that's absolutely fantastic. I love his art. It's got like a cool underground feel to it, and
It's very different.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I want to bid on it myself because I want it for me. Um,
Yeah, I imagine you would, especially with it saying your store's name on the art piece.
Yeah, so he stepped up and did it. He was the first, and then we got a call at the shop from Umberto Ramos's representative, saying that he's been, since all the coronavirus stuff had hit, he had been putting up pieces of his art to donate to each individual shops to help out individual shops. And when they heard about what happened to us, he said, "Oh, we're absolutely going to do this for you, and we're going to get." A couple of what he put up was 2 published pieces from 2 X-Men pages that he put up on eBay to sell, with the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds going to our relief fund to help us out. And that's amazing that they're doing that. And then we also,
They're fantastic pieces too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had a chance to look them up. They're incredible pages.
And then I got word that Todd Knock wanted to do the same thing. And I, just before we started recording today, saw the piece that he had put up. He has it up on eBay, and he put an image of it, a picture of it, on his Instagram page. And it's just a fantastic front and back sketch cover of Superman, that full color, that just looks absolutely amazing. So he's helping out as well.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I love how you touch on how a lot of these people live in completely different areas, and you'd never encounter each other in real life. But when you see them at a show, it's like they're your best friends. It's just kind of that. It's a really unique position when you do the con circuit, and when you see a lot of those types of people, and you're well networked in the industry, because it's it's like it's like you leave them but you never really leave them. It's always like you just left and had just seen each other a few days before, even if it's been months.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's totally what it's like.
Yeah, it's honestly that's the biggest thing that's killing me about this year is missing all the con circuit for that reason.
Yeah.
That's been hard.
Yeah. I'm missing them too.
So one thing I'd actually like to touch on, Eddie, is we discussed a little bit going in. I think every retail store in the country right now has had to have a plan about what happens in case some of this unrest kind of hits you. How much discussion did you guys have prior to these events, and kind of what was your game plan going in if this were to happen?
I have to admit, we didn't really have a game plan because, and I had discussed this with the two of you, I think the day before, because I've lived in Southern California, LA area, pretty much almost my entire life. I was here when the Rodney King riots happened. And from that experience, I had no idea, no inkling, no even thought that that was going to happen over all the way over on the west side. During the Rodney King riots, it all happened within basically one neighborhood, one area, and was all centralized there. And it didn't leak out into the other areas. So we didn't really have a game plan because we had didn't even suspect that it was going to happen like that. And it was a complete shock and a complete surprise for all of us, to be honest with you. I mean, I know this city. I've lived here all my life, and people will think, who are outside of LA, it's easy for them to think, well, you saw it was happening. Why didn't you get ready? Because LA is so spread out and so big. And Roger, you've been here, so you know what it's like.
Oh yeah,
It's not like a city. It's like a whole bunch of smaller cities all jumbled together. And
LA could be a country. It could be a small
yeah,
country. It really could.
so when you see riots starting, either uh, in downtown LA or south of that in more south central area, uh, you feel very insulated over on the west side of LA because it's a completely different world. And it is pretty far away. It's like you're talking about something that's 20, 25 miles away. Um, and it just completely different world. So you don't think of it coming all the way over there, breaking out all the way over there. It's just not something that I even considered. In fact, I remember talking to you guys when you were saying, "Hey, be careful out there when you go to work," because we went to work on the Saturday before running the shop. And I told you guys, I don't know what you're worried about. This is the West Side. This does not happen over here. This is way, way far away from where it's happening right now. And it's not going to.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that conversation.
And I was adamant to tell you guys, it's not going to come here. It doesn't happen here. And I was completely wrong. I've never been more wrong.
Well, I think that's been one of the big takeaways from this whole entire thing. We had people are calling it a riot, and I think that's a little bit of an over exaggeration for what actually happened. But we're seeing a quote unquote riot even at in Salt Lake City. We had cars flipped over and lit on fire, and some violence and some graffiti and some broken windows. And I mean, it was not as much as people are making it out to be. But this is not a place that's ever had like unrest is not something that Salt Lake City is exactly known for. And I just remember how many people were just shocked that something like that would come here because, you usually have a peaceful demonstration in a park, everyone will leave and move on with their lives like nothing ever happened. And it's been over a week and they're having nightly demonstrations. This has definitely been a different experience than the we've experienced in the past.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Portland has been similar. I mean, I know they looted the stores on Broadway downtown. I know the Nike store got hit, and a lot of shops in that area down there in the middle of the city. And but there's been a lot more. I've seen some fires, but mostly I've seen just people marching and demonstrating. It's I mean it's crazy how it's spread. It's worldwide now. I mean they're having the same, they're having demonstrations all over the world. It's a worldwide movement at this point, which is incredible. I mean, it's sad that it needs. needs to happen. It's sad that it's taken this long for us to get to a point where demonstrations or that we're it's sad that it's taken us this long to be fed up enough to where we're saying no, this is wrong, we want systemic change. I mean, especially here, it's been, just ongoing since the Emancipation Proclamation. Police violence against minorities has been an issue in this country. It's just
Yeah, well, and just issues with general control and corruption. I think it's most pronounced in violence against minorities, but I think there's a reason that you're seeing people sustained in the streets now when you didn't, even back in the, any other time in our lives. Is there's a combination of two things. You have people from all walks of life that are experiencing a lot of what's being experienced and seeing how it makes you feel, and then I think you see all the video cameras that are really showing the extent of a lot of what's happening.
yeah, no. I mean, it's very clear that there needs to be a change. I mean, we've seen. I mean, the video that's being shared it's just eye opening for some people. I've personally experienced police harassment and assault before. When I was in college,
Myself as well. Yeah.
when I was in college, I was at a bar, and there was a fight in the parking lot behind the bar, and I was standing out back smoking because I was dumb enough to be a smoker at the time, and a cop tackled me and dislocated my shoulder and busted my friend's tooth out, even though we had nothing to do with the fight that was on the complete opposite side of a huge parking lot.
Joe, if you just would have listened to him in elementary school when they told you that smoking was dangerous, you wouldn't have had that problem.
Yeah, I know. I threw away my smoke-free class of 2000 shirt because I outgrew it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had similar, and I don't want to get too much into my own personal experiences, but yeah, there's definitely been enough that I think, and I think it's important. Not that we're a political show or anything, but I do want to touch on the idea that there's two ideas that I think that need to be discussed, and that's that you can not hate cops or individual policemen, but still see systemic problems within your employer. If I say I don't like Target, that doesn't mean I'm mad at every cashier that works there. So I think that that's one thing that I think is an important distinction. And I think another important distinction is that the type of change that's being requested keeps everybody safer, and I include the police in that, because if police are trusted and valued, you're going to see less threats against police and less harms against police as well. So I think what's being requested is being requested in a way that hopefully it makes everybody safer is the goal.
No, and everyone needs to go out and support the acts to remove the demilitarization of the police. I mean, police should be community members. They shouldn't be considered warriors. They shouldn't be considered combatants, and they definitely should not be armed with military grade equipment. It's just it's they don't they're not using it correctly. It's very clear at this point they're not using it correctly. Just look on Instagram and start scrolling through. You're going to see people shot in the throat, shot in the chest, shot in the head with beanbag bullets and pepper bullets. And they're using it indiscriminately. I mean, the attacks on the press in particular are just unconscionable, in my opinion. There's no reason for it.
What I've noticed over the past week in Santa Monica is that the armored police vehicles are twice the size of the National Guards. I mean, we're talking about like full on, like war machine looking vehicles, giant armored vehicles that look like something that should be in a war zone. And they're literally, I'm not joking, they are twice the size of the vehicles that the National Guard are using. And the National Guard are still, all to this day, it's been all this week, they're all have a vehicle and men parked on almost every intersection in Santa Monica, in downtown Santa Monica.
Yeah, and people are going to counter the demilitarization of police, saying, "Well, we need them when this stuff happens." Well, if you fix
Isn't
the
that what the
problems
National
within
Guard
the
is for?
system, you wouldn't have these
need them.
problems. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So it's
yeah.
I mean, it's it's a difficult conversation. It's really kind of out of our wheelhouse as far as it's not what we're not here to make a political to make political stances. But in this case, I think
Keep your
Roger was
politics
right
out
when
of
he
my
said,
comics.
"No, that's something we will stand against." But no, just the my point is we're not political experts. We're not political commentators. But this, like Roger said, it's not. This isn't a political issue. This is a human rights issue fundamentally, and it's a it's an important topic that we need to broach. Just to change the subject real quickly. So I ran down all the creators and artists and people that shared your post and helped. So we'd like to give them a thank you. Terry Dodson also helped.
Oh wow,
Gail
didn't know
Simone we
that.
mentioned as well. Jock, J. Scott Campbell, and the actor Mark Sorello, uh, who has appeared in he's got over 50 roles on his IMDb page, including movies with like Elizabeth Banks and others. So we just want to thank those people for their help, their sharing and help with the promotion of the GoFundMe for Hideo.
Oh, I'll thank one more person too, if you don't mind. Um,
Absolutely, don't want to miss
one
anyone.
of our regular customers is Viggo Mortensen's son, and his son Henry contacted his dad. I don't know if people are aware, but his dad has his own book company, book publishing company that his son works for. And so Vigo and his son donated boxes of their books to the shop for us to sell. So I want to thank them as well.
Absolutely, that's awesome. That's funny. I just heard on a separate show that Henry is the reason Vigo ended up doing Lord of the Rings. He was going to pass, and Henry
Are you
talked him into
serious?
it. Yeah.
Really? I
Yep.
didn't know that.
That was on. Yeah. Well, I'm. That's really funny. I had no idea Henry existed until yesterday, and I was watching the Josh Gad's got a show on YouTube where he takes people who are social distancing and puts them together. So he reunited the entire Lord of the Rings cast yesterday, which was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, he'd done Splash and The Goonies and Back to the Future. And yeah, you should check it out. It's a fun little show. It's interesting to watch these people who are all at home on their computer but are just uber famous.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but it's I one thing I also want to say about Henry is that you hear so many stories about, because if people are not aware, both of Henry's parents are celebrities. His dad is Vigo, and his mom is Exene Cervenka, the lead singer of X. And me having grown up in the LA area with LA punk bands, of course I know who that is. Not everybody,
Absolutely.
yeah, not everyone might know, but so Henry pretty much grew up with two celebrity parents, and you hear so many stories about uh, children of celebrities who grow up to be just complete entitled jerks and are just horrible to people and treat people like crap. Henry is the nicest, sweetest guy that you could ever meet. Every time he comes in, he's always friendly, always nice, and we love him to death. So I can't say enough nice things about Henry.
Well, that's awesome.
I think that's based on my experience. Honestly, that whole son of a celebrity thing or kid of a celebrity is a little bit of an unfair stereotype, anyways. Because, like, again, you talked about John Romita Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good example. And I also had the chance to, several times to meet Max Brooks, and he was always, I mean, legitimately one of the nicest people I ever met at Comic Cons,
Yeah,
consistently.
he's been in the shop too.
Yeah, Max is a great dude,
Yeah,
and so I've not seen that stereotype really play out in real life.
and it's kind of fun too. I didn't realize this, but Henry had said elsewhere that that Heidi Ho. Oh, he left this comment on the GoFundMe page, and said that that Heidi Ho has been his shop since he was a little kid, and that his dad took him there all the time. And I had no clue. But one time he did come into the shop with his dad one time, and I missed it because I was walking from the bank as they were walking out. But I can only imagine the reaction of, like, say, all the women customers in the shop at the time that Vigo was in there.
All All right. Well, unfortunately, we do have to address the negative reactions that has happened, and why don't you tell us, Eddie, about the you got some Comicgate pushback on your GoFundMe. Why don't you tell us about what those idiots said?
So it was a twofer on Friday. I got two pieces of horrible news. First was the whole DC thing that you guys talked about yesterday. That was fun. And then right before that, my partner shared a link with all of us of a Comicgate YouTuber who saw our GoFundMe page and started basically just talking smack about it and tearing it apart. And honestly, what he said was pretty tame, considering that and what he was talking about was just nonsensical. Um, he was first off, he goes by a pseudonym on YouTube. Apparently, he's a pretty well-known YouTuber. He goes by a pseudonym. I will not name him. I will not share his links. I am of the opinion that you do not respond to these idiots and you just starve them out. That is the only way to fight them. So he made accusations about us that we were, by our messages that we put on the boards outside our shop, that we stand by the message of the protesters, that we were pretty much thanking the looters for what they did to us, because in his mind he's equating the protesters with the looters as being one and the same. And then he goes on first, and then he had criticism of the fact that we were donating part of what we raised. We were donating 10% to Bink, and we're donating another 10% of what we raise to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which was called a hate group in the video. And then goes on to say that if we can give away 20% of what we earn, then apparently we don't need the money anyway, which makes no sense. He goes on to say that he goes on to criticize us of the fact that we were asking the amount that we're asking for, which was $43,000, which is, really the accumulation of lost inventory, damage to the shop and the building, lost sales, lost pay to the employees who now are all sitting at home. You add all that stuff together, and any business is going to come up with a number comparable to what we came up with, what we figured out. And he goes on to criticize that, but yet before and after the video and his criticism of that, he is plugging his crowdfunding campaign for his comic book, which is already over $100,000. So he's really upset about what we're asking when he is already raising more than twice that for what looks to me to be such a crappy comic. I don't know who needs $100,000 to self-publish a crappy little comic book.
Even if it wasn't a crappy comic, you don't need $100,000
No,
to publish a comic. I mean, regardless of the quality, that's just it's a ridiculous thing to think that is needed to publish a single independent comic book. I know people that do it on pocket change just to get straight by.
Absolutely not. Even if he does a large print run that costs him $20,000 or something like that, where's the rest of that money going? His pocket, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and that's the game that these people play, and this is what Comicgate has been built on, and the reason why these well-known comics gators double down so hard, even though they complain and whine and moan that they've been blackballed from the industry, but they don't actually care, and is that they're not getting Marvel DC work, not because they have a conservative lean, but because they're toxic and they attack people.
Right.
They complain about getting blackballed from the industry, but they don't care, because what they do is they get enough outrage behind them that they can put out damn near anything they want, regardless of quality and regardless of skill. And the people that have this what they feel like is some super justified outrage is going to pour money into that, thinking that it's some charitable cause, or that will show everybody else that they're wrong. And so they're really just taking advantage of political outrage for their own benefit.
And
I mean, this is the game they play. Everyone that is big in that world has done this.
Yes.
Put out huge numbers in Kickstarter, delivered subpar to even sometimes straight up just don't deliver a product that they were promised,
Right.
and run off with all the cash.
Yeah. And just to clarify, they don't use Kickstarter because Kickstarter does not allow these idiots on their platform. A lot of them go to Indiegogo or other forms of
That's true.
crowdfunding. But, and to your point, they are raising all this money while they're outraging that they can't get work in the industry. They are raising way more money and making way more than the average known comic book creator even makes.
Which is why they do it. I mean, there's
Yes.
a reason that they do this. This is not, and the best part is, and you know what? I don't even blame somebody if they find a way that they can find a niche that makes them money and makes them a career, especially as an artist. That's what you do. I don't even necessarily at that point. Okay, you're an entertainer, whatever. What I hold a little, to be hypocritical about this is 99% of the time, the thing that they attack everyone else for is being in it for the money and profiting off of whatever insert outrage here that they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And they're outraging about someone else's profit for profit, and it's ridiculous.
And in this case, being outraged over the amount that we are asking for in our GoFundMe page when he's already raised way over half or way over double what we are even asking.
Well, and just to clarify, most insurance does not cover damage from civil unrest or
Correct.
riots, and I'm assuming that's the case with your insurance, right?
Exactly. And if you do get them to cover it, it is a long fight to get them to do that.
And a penance compared to what
Exactly.
you actually had.
And
lost.
most small shops like us do not have the time and the energy to put into fighting that long term when they are pretty much now, like for us, trying to survive day to day. I mean, we have our shop just opened up the Wednesday before we were looted. We were just allowed from the county to reopen and have people in our shop again and get up and running. And before that, we were closed for almost 2 months, trying to survive however we can on just what we are selling online. So we had already taken a blow, and then now as we're reopening, we get this final last finish him blow to our shop with the looters. And that was another criticism that this guy had in this video, was that, well, they're admitting that they were already hurting, so they were probably going to go out of business anyway, so why are you giving them money?
So again, just for clarity, Eddie, were you about to go out of business?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm well aware of that already, but just for clarification's sake. No, and that's the thing is these people are so they have such a forked tongue, because they will try to co-opt us when they are angry at Marvel or DC and pretend that their outrage is because Marvel and DC is harming the small little comic shops. But then if we ever, step where they see is out of line, they're happy to attack and mock us.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, while comic retailers are by no means a monolith, I think it's safe to say that if any of them are, pro Comicgate, it's probably less than 10%. They are widely detested.
Exactly. Yeah.
Within the comic retailers have little to no patience for Comicgate as a movement, as the messaging that they put out, and the half truths and spun, propaganda that they throw out, that we end up having every day in our shop. People talking to us about this ridiculous false propaganda that we have to show them is just made up most of the time or completely taken out of context.
All right, guys. Well, that's about going to wrap things up for us. Eddie, why don't you take us out?
I want to end this by saying that I want to say thank you to everybody that has supported us during this past week, all the regular customers, all of the comic pros, everybody that stepped up for the GoFundMe page, everyone that has contacted me privately asking what they could do, or just sharing a kind word and saying, we believe in what you guys are doing and what you're saying. I want to make sure, and the people that are auctioning off their art, the pros that are auctioning off their art to help us. I also don't want to thank Comicgate. Oh, and CGC. I want to thank CGC for stepping up and saying we'd absolutely love to do this to help you. That's really nice of them. Just a big thank you to everybody. It means a lot.
All right. I just want to say, Eddie, thank you for keeping your attitude that you've had through this. It's been an inspiration to me, and I hope that you will be whole sooner than later. And we will be back next week. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, man. I thought your post on it was perfect. Your guys' thoughts afterwards were perfect. I've used it to shut down many a ignorant conversation at this point. In fact, so thank you for the weapon.
Which one? I'm sorry.
You're boarded up. You're on your Windows and your
Oh, the
was it your
main
Twitter post? I
one. Okay,
believe.
yeah, because there's been so
Yeah.
much and things going back and forth this past week. It's hard to keep track
No,
of.
I keep that and the Twitter post both on hand readily.
Okay.
Every time somebody tries to discredit this whole thing, but you wouldn't think that if it was your shop, which is
Yes.
great when people say that to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, no, I mean it's
I
funny.
say funny story.
It's funny when I get it. Oh, you wouldn't be posting
Yeah.
this flowery crap if it was your
Oh
store.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Oh, that was fantastic. Oh, that made my day.
Yeah. So, and I love that.
Yep.
All right. So that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back next week to get you updated on all the latest news and stories from around the shop. Actually, we're going to finish up our How to Collect next week, I believe. So look for How to Collect Part 2. All right. We'll see you then.
All right, back to normal next week, hopefully.
I don't know what normal is anymore.